welcome back to Development Book Club. Today we are continuing with boundaries, and we're on the home stretch of the book. We're almost done. We're in part 3, the end, which is developing healthy boundaries. And we're just going to cover one chapter today because it's really good and a pretty long chapter too, which is resistance to boundaries. So we've realized the importance of having healthy boundaries, how to develop them, and then what kind of resistance we're going to meet when it comes up. The idea here from the authors, before we even begin, is that establishing boundaries takes a lot of work, discipline, and most of all, desire. However, even with desire, we can be reluctant to actually place boundaries and to inform the consequences, because we know there will be the author's term, they use the term war, which includes disputes and losses. Two types of resistance to boundaries are external and internal. We'll start with the external types, which is out there in the world, and then we'll talk about what's going on inside of us that might hold us back as well. To begin with the external, number one are angry reactions. This is going to be the most common external resistance to boundaries being set. So let's have another great quote here. There's a lot of really awesome quotes in this chapter, the first of which is about angry reactions. People who get angry at others for setting boundaries have a character problem. Bit judgy, but it's right there. It's pretty blunt, so it's cool. How to deal with the angry person. 6 steps. So with an angry person, remember first that the angry person is the one with the problem, character problem, to use the author's term. Number 2, stay separate from their anger. You don't need to receive their anger. It's possible for them to be angry and you to not be angry. Let it be in them and not in you. Number 3, another awesome point, which is don't let their anger be a cue for me to do something. There's a great power in inactivity here. We don't, just because someone's angry and yelling does not necessitate a response in somebody else, or especially a reaction, right? Number 4, make sure you have a support system in place, something we've talked about before, and to remain strong, either with you or right after you make the confrontation. Number 5, be calm in the presence of their anger and remain loving. So this is a good, we don't want to withdraw or get in a power struggle and be angry back. Number 6, be prepared to use physical distance and other limits with time and stuff to enforce consequences. So this is with people that are angry. And again, the authors really emphasize that these steps should not be taken with spite or anger themselves. So for example, I understand that you're not upset you're upset that I won't do that for you. And I'm sorry that you feel that way. How can I help? So that's with the angry person. And then there's a more subtle version of the angry person, which is the person who gives guilt messages. So guilt messages, for example, how could you do this to me after everything I've done for you? These are not given for your growth. They're given to manipulate and control you. Number 2, guilt messages are really anger in disguise, as I said. The other person would rather focus on you and your behavior than on how they're actually feeling, and they want to get what they need, but they don't want to focus on their own negative feelings. So focusing on their feelings would get them too close to responsibility for their own feelings in their life. Number 3, guilt messages, at the bottom of it, hide sadness and hurt. So recognize these unmet needs and corresponding emotions that are driving the guilt message. And this is going back to nonviolent communication again, which is great. So number 4, if you feel guilty, that's your problem, not their problem. So again, you're responsible for your own feelings. Number 5, this is the biggest tip for guilt messages, which is do not explain or justify yourself. That's what guilty people do, and you're not guilty here. Just tell what you've chosen to do or not to do. Number 6, interpret their message as being about, again, their feelings. It sounds like you're angry that I chose to, whatever it is. So move to their feelings. And then you can address their unmet needs as well. It sounds like you're sad that I will not, whatever. So the main point here is to empathize with their distress, the distress that they're feeling, and make it clear that it's their distress, not yours. So it sounds like life is hard right now. Tell me about it. Listen and don't take blame after that. Next type of person, as we move through external consequences for boundaries. These are people who put consequences on you and are considered counter movers. So establishing the limit and consequence is their first move, and then their sort of chess game they play afterwards. The other person will often respond with consequences of their own and counter moves to manipulate you. So figure out what you're getting into. You may what you may lose and what you're willing to lose or not lose in a situation. What is your freedom worth to you? How much money is it worth? Inheritance is often used as like a manipulative gesture or a counter move to a boundary. What's it worth to you? What is your own life worth to you? Your own freedom. Know the risks and prepare. The hard part, setting the boundary, oftentimes might just be the beginning. So go back to your support system. Because boundaries without consequences are not boundaries at all. Okay, a few more types of external resistance. Then we'll move on to the internal stuff. Physical resistance. If you're in this situation, it's good to have a support network. Work with a counselor who has experience with domestic violence and take even legal steps to get a restraining order. Another external motivator would be the pain of others. So the person who is just has a boundary set on them for the first time in a while, at least, they will feel a loss, like a hole where they used to plug in their like aloneness and their needs and their disorganization and their financial responsibility, whatever's wrong with them or whatever they're struggling with in their life, I should say. So remember that your boundaries are both necessary for you to remain functional, and it actually helps them in the long run. Blamers is another version of the guilt message. So this is like the idea of like, oh, you're holding my career back by not lending me money to buy a new car. So same thing with the guilt messages. Keep it on them. Don't internalize it. People with real needs. So this is the idea that your broken heart may want to give to someone who's struggling, but the truth is that you'll burn out if you did. You'll end up resenting them too. Last external type, which is forgiveness and reconciliation. So forgiveness is something that we do in our hearts. We release someone from a debt. There's some really good passages here. We release someone from a debt that they no longer owe us. And it only takes one person. Like one party is needed to forgive. That's you. So reconciliation, on the other hand, takes two people if it's something we're looking to do. This involves the other person owning their own wrongdoings and appropriating forgiveness from you. And trust may still not be there yet with that. So those are all the external struggles could happen when we're placing boundaries, especially for the first time in a long time. How about the internal stuff? So that's just as important. So human need. So getting the good. This can come from unmet developmental needs from our own childhoods. So a lot of people didn't have good parents when it comes to this, and they're thus, interesting term here, psychological orphans. So be aware of that in yourself. Also, unresolved grief or loss. So whereas human needs is about getting the good, we also got to let go of the bad. So the life before proper functioning is not worth holding on to. We tend to want to because it's where we are when we're struggling, but we're better letting go. So we must lose it, grieve it, let go so that we can receive new and good things. To start to say no to a controlling parent, for example, is to get in touch with the sadness of what you maybe never got from them growing up. But to be able to mourn that and to let go of it is a healthy thing. So we can play if onlys or whatever, like forever. Or we can set boundaries, but you can't do both. So choose one. A couple steps here again to work with unresolved grief or loss from childhood, which is to own your own boundarylessness, your own state of trouble with boundaries, to realize this internal and external resistances that you're going to see. Seek grace and truth, say the authors. Identify with the wish of what you're looking, where do you want to go, and then let go of what this person is in your mind. It's almost like a funeral, and there could be like rituals you could even do in your own head or in the real world. Number 6 is to move on and to find what you actually do want, which is a huge and a difficult step. Okay, continuing with the internal resistances to change. Internal fears of anger. So if angry people can make you lose your boundaries, you probably have an angry person in your head that you're still afraid of. So this is a huge opportunity to not let others' anger be a cue for you to do anything or concede anything. They can be angry and you don't have to concede. You can be quiet and peaceful and loving with that anger present. Fear of the unknown is another huge one. So weird thing here. Being controlled by other people is actually a safe prison for yourself psychologically. We know where all the rooms are in this prison. We're very familiar with the dynamics and how everything works, right? So remember to lean on your support group, sharpen your own skills and gifts, and remember your confidence in your ability to learn new things and to move forward. Also set internal, external structure to provide order for your own life. Unforgiveness. So forgiveness is to free yourself. To forgive means that we will never get from that person what was owed us, and we let go. This can be tough for people as well. External focus. You must look at yourself and face the internal resistance of wanting the problem to be on the outside of you. So where there are a lot of external pressures, ultimately it's your choice, and that's something on the inside as well. Guilt. So again, guilt from outside, also from inside. We have to be careful about listening to guilt feelings that tell us when we're wrong. So for example, like guilt feelings themselves, those can be wrong. Many people do not have good boundaries because they are afraid of disobeying the internal parent inside their own head. So the guilt is your problem. Remember to own that. If it's not being put on you by the outside, but you're feeling a certain way, like this is something you can control inside of you. So see that being manipulated, being a person that is manipulated, is your problem. Think about this. Does that person manipulate every single person that they're in contact with successfully? Probably not. So therefore, it has to do with the other different people as well. So it's an option. What can you do to step outside of that loop? So once you admit that frame, accept that frame, you're able to master the situation. Abandonment fears. Taking a stand in a vacuum is the last one, which is that boundaries come after bonding. We learned this in chapter 4, talking about infant development. So boundaries are not built in a vacuum. They must be undergirded by strong bonding to safe people. So remember that even as an adult. And then, of course, if this were easy, you would have done it by now. And that is the end of chapter 14. Ton of really good takeaways in there. We'll continue next time with chapter 15 and 16, which are about how to measure success with boundaries. And then we will wrap up the book and we're done.